I was enjoying a freshly made cup of coffee. I was looking through my YouTube stats and I noticed a weird comment that seemed to have a bunch of likes. And this one comment took me down a rabbit hole of really trying to understand when a photo is real and when a photo, well, is not. Because the comment claimed that one of the photos that I'd taken in one of my videos was fake. I replied to that comment saying it wasn't fake, well, because I'd literally taken the photo a few weeks earlier, but the commenter didn't agree. The commenter claimed that if a photo is supposed to be a moment of time that is accurately captured, then all of my images are fake because they're not accurate representations of reality. So, does the camera lie, or can we rely on it to document our reality? I wanted to find out, and so I started looking into the steps that happen when a photo goes from a scene to glass to ones and zeros to an image on our screens or in front of us in a print. And I wanted to identify the steps where reality could be bent or even broken. So let's start with the tool itself, your camera. You might think that a camera is pretty neutral about how it sees the world, like it's like a window that you're just looking through and you're viewing what's in front of it. But the moment that light hits your lens, reality is already getting bent. A telephoto lens is going to zoom in so far into the distance, it's going to make the small sun on the horizon look massive. A wide-angle lens does the opposite. It's going to stretch objects further apart than they actually really are when you're stood there in that environment. Neither view is how your eyes obviously actually see the scene. It's like standing in front of one of those mirrors at a carnival. Your reflection is still you, kind of, but it's taller, shorter, it's wider, thinner, it's just all weird and warped because of the glass. And then there's depth of field. So your eyes are naturally shifting focus with incredible speed, pulling background and foreground into clarity almost instantly. And obviously a camera doesn't work like that at all. If you open the aperture of your lens wide, suddenly you've only got one slice of reality, one slice of the frame that is sharp, and the rest is going to be all blurry. It looks dramatic, it looks beautiful for sure, but that's not the reality that we're stood in front of when we take the picture. I mean, I wouldn't walk downstairs, right, and see my dog's face in perfect sharp focus whilst the rest of the kitchen melts into a blurry fuzz. And then we have dynamic range, and this is another dead giveaway that reality isn't quite as what it's seen through the lens of a camera. Because if you step outside on a sunny day, your eyes handle the brightness of the sky and the shadows under the tree that's next to you just fine. A camera sensor can't do that though. If you expose for the sky, the tree is going to turn into a black silhouette. If you expose for the tree, the sky becomes a big blown out white mess. And that limitation means that every photo that you take is already a compromise. Your camera settings are going to dictate what gets sacrificed. Even shutter speed, one of the simplest settings you can change on your camera, adjusts the reality as we see it through the lens. A fast shutter speed is going to freeze raindrops mid-air, showing you something that your eyes can't observe, literally can't observe it. A long shutter speed, however, is then going to do the opposite effect. It's going to smooth waterfalls into smooth white flows of fluid, right? And both of these effects are illusions because neither is what you actually saw when you were stood there taking the photo. And the truth is, cameras never give you a one-to-one copy of life. They only give you a perspective, and where that perspective is looking can make a massive difference to the end result of the image as well. Because imagine you're photographing a protest. You frame a wide shot that shows hundreds of people politely, appropriately walking down the street. Then you, in the same location, you've not moved, it's still happening, there's the same scene in front of you. You zoom in on the three random angry faces who are screaming at the top of their lungs about probably something rather than nothing. Both these photos are true, but they don't tell the same truth. One suggests a large, peaceful crowd, the other probably feels quite threatening as you look at the image. Your scene hasn't changed, but your perspective has. And every time you lift the camera to your eye, you're rewriting reality, whether you mean to or not, based on this change of perspective. And remember, pressing the shutter isn't even the end of the story here. Once that shutter clacks open and shut, a whole world of additional changes are made to the image that we think that we've just captured. Because the thing is, there might be someone out there that can manage this, but I certainly can't, you probably can't, read ones and zeros and translate that into something that represents the reality around us. And so even if your camera did accurately capture the scene that it was pointed at, you still can't interpret it without some kind of translation layer. And if you ask your camera to dump these images into a JPEG file format on your memory card, then, well, somewhere in Japan or Germany, you're relying on a technician, a programmer, probably quite a large team at this point, that have programmed that translation layer to create a digital image that is an accurate representation of the scene that you're in front of based on all of these ones and zeros and nuances, and obviously it's not going to be very accurate at all. Every camera is going to boost colors in a certain way, or it's going to increase contrast, and it even sharpens your photo, all before you even get a chance to see them if you're shooting in JPEG. And you're probably thinking, what about RAW files? They are unedited until I get them on my computer, right? Well, there's almost as much going on with them as you bring them into Lightroom and start editing them as well. There's a whole translation layer that goes on inside Lightroom. That's the whole point of Lightroom, right? To take all of these ones and zeros and turn it into an image format that then you can start your edit with. And having said that, never mind even editing your photos. At this step, any resemblance of reality is completely gone from the image that we're trying to take. And that's before you've even edited the damn things, right? So let's take these two images, for example. They are almost unrecognizable as the same scene. And I've not even done that much of an edit across the two of them. And sometimes your edit might be short. You spot a distracting bit of dust that was on your sensor in the image, and so you clone it out. No worries. Other times you might try and take an image, especially in landscape photography, you might try and take an image that, well, it was a bit rubbish, and you throw everything at it to try and make it interesting and try and build something from nothing with your edit. That happens all the time with landscape photography. A lot of landscape photos look nothing like the reality that they were taken in. And then you have compositing, so blending multiple exposures together to increase the dynamic range of the image because you can capture all in one shot. And to someone scrolling online, that might look like a once in a lifetime sunset that was just taken with one snap of a shutter. But to you, you know that it was 2 or 3 separate moments, probably seconds in between them, that have been stitched together to try and emulate what your eyes were seeing in that scene. And here's the big twist. You can't even compare the digital image that you've got on your computer or that you printed out with the reality that you think you saw on the day because, well, your brain plays tricks on you as well. Because even if cameras and editing didn't exist, your own eyes would still betray you. They do it constantly, day after day. I mean, your vision feels instant and reliable, but science shows us that your vision works like a patchwork of illusion, kind of all getting stitched together by your brain. You don't just see one scene, you're seeing lots of little bits of a scene and your brain ties it all together. I mean, if you want to get really nerdy about it, just think about how humans see light. Human eyes can only detect a tiny sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum, mainly reds, greens, blues, the rainbow essentially. Infrared light, ultraviolet light, X-rays, they're invisible to our eyes, so what you think is reality, what we all call reality, has already been crippled by our biology. Then, interestingly, there's also a processing delay, because neuroscientists have shown that our brain processes what the eyes see with a small lag. So what you're looking at is always slightly in the past versus the actual reality that we're all moving through. And our memories make all this even messier. Our brains are actually pretty rubbish at remembering things. For example, research shows that 75% of false convictions in the US are caused by inaccurate eyewitness testimony. We believe that our eyes are telling us the truth, but the reality is that is getting filtered by biology, and then we're terrible at remembering what we thought we saw anyway. So when you press the shutter button and you're comparing what you think you saw with what your camera presents to you, well, you're layering on all of these distortions. Your eyes are going to misperceive things, your brain is going to misremember, and then the camera is going to mistranslate, and then heck, you might have even edited the crap out of your photo so it looks nothing like reality anyway. It's a chain of tiny little lies and errors and issues all stacked together. So maybe I was wrong to argue in the comments with the random stranger who said my photo was fake. Maybe I shouldn't be arguing with random strangers on the internet in the first place. But sure, from a certain perspective, most photography is not going to be an accurate representation of reality. And if this is the case, what is the point in taking photos in the first place then? Well, I like going out to do landscape photography because I enjoy being outdoors. I love hunting out new compositions in new places, and quite frankly, it's the only moment of the week where if I've got any stress, I get to put it to one side as I focus on capturing the best image I can. Then I have a great time getting images off the computer, editing them, and potentially printing them off as well. So maybe my photos are fake, but I guess it doesn't really matter. What do you think? Drop a comment below, let me know your thoughts. And if you can't be asked leaving a comment, then no worries, sit back, relax, carry on watching the video that's on the screen